Welcome to a new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. This is Mark.
This is Matt.
So, how's it going?
It's going good. I am near the end of my cold and sinus infection, whatever, and I have my voice back.
Yeah, because we were going to record Friday night, but you were like, I'm all sick, and you you sound like a mutant talking or something.
I sounded like whenever it was really bad, I sounded like Batman. And then whenever it wasn't so bad, I sounded like the guy from Deadpool, that weird actor that did weird stuff.
Yeah, you don't really want to sound like him now.
Yeah, I even sent you a clip so you could hear me.
Yeah, he's probably going to end up in jail, possibly.
Probably.
I don't know.
Kind of like Brick. He might want to lay low because he's probably wanted for murder.
What do you, called a bomb threat in somewhere or something?
Yeah, dude.
What a weirdo.
Freaking weird, man. Why can't he be like, other celebrities and just, wear women's clothing? I don't know.
Is that what they do nowadays?
I guess so.
Smoke dope and just wear
women's clothes.
Possibly. So we're going to kick off a very special two-part episode. Two separate movies.
Yes.
Instead of doing a double feature, we're going to do it as two parts because on December 15th of this year, it'll be officially 40 years since Superman the movie hit movie theaters. And it's also 80 years of Superman being a character this year. So we felt like we wanted to really do Superman proper because we've done a lot of Batman on this show. And it's funny, we're going to do another Batman movie in a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks from now. But we wanted to give Superman his due because sometimes he doesn't always get that credit that he sometimes deserves because he's known as the good boy character, the Boy Scout. And but Superman the movie is a great classic film. So we're going to be talking Superman the movie today. And as always, anybody listening to WBLZ Media and Ironiq Radio, thank you for tuning in. And so that's what we've got coming up here in just a bit. But so far, how's your week been?
So far, so good. It's been mainly chilly today, but some cool things happened this week, like the Texans winning again.
You're always talking about the weather. You're such an old.
I know. I turned it to sports. I tried to confuse you and make you think that I'm not an old person in my mind, and then. Let's turn it over to sports so you can be like, yeah, dude, Texans, and just, sound like one of those guys. But I have not fooled you, sir. I have not fooled you.
You're just old.
Yes, okay. I'm just old. The other thing that came to mind, and it will also make me sound old, is my wife raked the whole front yard of leaves, and now my lawn looks great. Maybe I'll put some Scots on it.
God,
feed your lawn.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad I have to rake leaves. I live where I live is more natural. We just let it flow. I don't have to rake leaves.
I was gonna let it flow, and she's like, "What? You keep blowing the leaves everywhere. It doesn't look good." And she filled up our whole trash can full of leaves. I can't even put trash in there for whenever the trash man comes. So now my garage is just gonna have trash in it. And it's gonna smell, but. I guess, the leaves are gone, and that's what's important. Happy wife, happy life. That's what it is.
I guess so.
Yes.
Apparently.
How about you, sir? How has your week been?
It was okay. I worked, and then Suns football season's over, unfortunately, after a tough loss yesterday.
Yeah. And
then the Longhorns lost yesterday, a Big 12 title game. But they're still going to play on New Year's Day in the Sugar Bowl, so I guess... There's a bright side to that,
Are they playing the Sugar Bowl or are they playing the Texas Bowl?
No, it's going to be A&M in the Texas Bowl.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm working that game, so I'm going to be at the A&M game. I thought I'd be at the
I'm sorry.
UT game.
I'm sorry, you have to be in there with a bunch of Aggie fans.
For me, it would be more interesting to watch UT, U of H, or Tech, or maybe even Baylor.
Let me tell you, Aggie fans are annoying.
Yeah, they are.
They just... There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. You have a few of them that truly support their school and their fans, but they are just they might be among the worst fan base I've seen, and that's not.
Is that counting the Cubs?
Knocking anyone that is an Aggie fan, because I do have friends that are Aggie fans.
Yeah.
And they're good people, but they're the type that will admit that their fan base is terrible.
Yeah. Okay.
So so they understand that. I
always miss those Aggie jokes. When it's like...
They're probably not politically correct nowadays.
It's probably not. Yeah. It's like my favorite one was, it's like, there's an Aggie and there's a Longhorn and they're peeing in a urinal next to each other. And the Longhorn just gets up, stops peeing, he passes up the sink. And the Aggie fan says, "Hey, my mom taught me that we're supposed to wash our hands after we use the restroom." And the Longhorn fan looks at him and he says, "Well, my mom taught me not to pee on my hands when I use the restroom."
Yeah, there's some. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Texas thing.
Yeah,
he went out there like probably
very G-rated.
He was not
Yeah.
from Texas. Probably like, what is he talking
What is he
about? It's you have to understand. You have to live here to understand the A&M Longhorn rivalry that existed for 100 years and it suddenly disappeared because the Aggies decided to go to the SEC. And it's a long story, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, the rivalry's not there anymore, other than through fans that like to bark at each other.
Yeah. At least we have the fans that like to bark at each other.
And
we'll settle for it.
Speaking of barking, I was reading, because this is the holiday season, and this kind of pertains, we talk movies on the show and comics and pop culture. Did you read that there's a movement to make Rudolph, like, the Rankin and Bass animated one, the stop motion, to go away?
I heard about that.
That people are saying
promotes bullying.
Yeah, it promotes bullying and non-acceptance and racism and all this. And I'm like, I've watched that every year almost my whole life.
Yeah.
My children have watched it. I've never once ever watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and thought that it was anything negative or anything absurdly rude to any certain class of people.
Yeah.
It's a story about a make-believe reindeer and make-believe characters that I can say this because we're recording while the kids are awake, so we don't have to worry about them, knowing whether Santa is real and all that.
Yeah.
That is for make-believe reasons, to believe in magic and to believe that Rudolph can lead this sleigh. And that's all it is.
Yes.
And to me, this is the world we live in now. Unfortunately, you have these millennials and everyone that has to have an opinion
Internet
on
warriors,
things.
yeah.
The internet warriors that want to find something wrong in everything. It's ridiculous. Well, did Rudolph hurt your feelings?
Probably. I'm feeling hurt right about now. I demand reparations.
And not only is Rudolph apparently rude and racist and bullying, is that the song "Baby It's Cold Outside" apparently is
now it's
also asked to be taken off the air because it
promotes rape.
Promotes rape or something.
Yeah,
the Me Too
he won't
movement.
leave.
Like,
he won't
what?
leave the house. She's telling him to leave, and he's staying. He's forcing himself on her. Like, no, he's not. You can't even see what's going on. It's a song.
And we use the internet for our show and to promote it
And to look at videos with cats.
if that's what you like. And some cats are than others.
Yeah.
But
Good joke.
I never bitch about sports.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
But I never felt like it's just irritating.
It's very irritating. I just don't see the point of it all.
I think looking back at The Last Jedi, that in a world without the internet, The Last Jedi is probably much more loved, and the fan base wouldn't have been as divided as it was.
Yeah.
The internet caused a lot of that.
I think so too.
And it has seemed to have slowed down now, because I think people are realizing like it's not worth it, but and that's where the internet causes problems, is things like that, and making Rudolph a bully.
I feel like if there was more Tyler Durden in the world, he would tell people to stop letting your TV tell you what to think.
And wasn't that supposed to be the millennial generation? I thought they were the generation that was supposed to be told not what to think. It's the exact opposite.
It's the opposite,
They're
man.
fucking programmed left and right.
It was supposed to be the chosen one.
Did you read anything this week that irritated you as much as Rudolph, or anything interesting?
Man, it's... I read something similar, is that, people want to be considered veterans for, retweeting stuff on the internet, I guess.
What?
Yeah, they want veteran status for protesting because they're serving their country.
Wow.
Against tyranny. And I'm like, I can see it now. Someone's going to be 30 years post removed from this, and they're going to be like, the war of 2018 was hard. I retweeted 50 articles from Snopes, fact-checking people.
That's really a thing?
And I felt like I changed 20 people's minds. And I got carpal tunnel from, Facebook and all of it.
So we get the media throws in our face about NFL players kneeling and protesting all that, and this isn't making bigger. That should be bigger news.
That should be bigger news. Yeah.
That's disrespectful.
Yeah, they brought a veteran on to ask him, hey, what do you feel about this? And he's like, look, we go through a lot. We put our lives down on the line for this country. He's like, and all we get is a title of veteran. He's like, that's all we take away with this.
Right.
He's like, and you're trying to make that a common commodity when people die for that status. He's like, I don't agree with it. And I was like, I couldn't agree more with that statement.
Yeah, that says it all. It's something
weird.
More lighthearted.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the bear in California that walked right into the police station?
Oh, no. I thought you were talking about the bear in Canada.
No. There was a bear in California that literally stood up on two legs and pushed the door up, walked right in, and walked around, didn't bother anybody, then walked back out. But then the next day, he did it again.
Weird.
They thought he ran back in the woods. The next morning, he does it again. Comes right back into the police station.
Looking for a picnic basket.
But again, he didn't harm anyone.
Yeah.
He walked around and knocked over a few tables and chairs and stuff, and then left the police station again for the second day in a row.
Bastard, knocking over chairs.
This happened back right before Thanksgiving, and I guess it took a week to make the news. And it's a real story. You read it, almost sounds fake.
Pretty hilarious.
I thought that was pretty funny.
I thought you were talking about the horrible bear story where a guy is in Canada, these Canadians, and I guess they're in their winter home, and he's walking back from trapping, and there's a bear running towards him, so he shoots it, kills it, goes back to their cottage, and his wife and 10-month-old child are found mauled from this bear, and pretty sad. I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah, that's pretty horrible.
Sad.
Jeez, Matt.
Okay. It's bad.
Wow. Let's get into the show. Download this. This is where we tell people what we watched, streamed, and I've extremely freaking slacked off this week and watching stuff. But I did, besides watching the movie we're talking about today, I rewatched Death of Superman, the new animated film that came out. Just because I felt like it was a good complementary double feature in a way to go with this film. And DC, man, I'm really looking. This is a really good animated film. We've talked about it on the show before, and I really like it a lot. It's really well done, well voice acted across the board. I'm looking forward to the sequel, which comes out next month in January. It doesn't seem like it's that far away because it is December 2nd. It's like, bam, it's coming out next month. The sequel to it. I like how they did it. I mean, they just with the Justice League's trying to take care of everything, so Clark can have his day off, his afternoon off, really, with Lois, and he's going to leave it all on the table for Lois. And, he leaves his note for her, letting him know he loves her, and he takes off to fight to his death. Yeah, for an animated film, it's really well done. It's a great musically. I could tell rewatching it, the score is well done. It's dramatic. It's emotional for an animated film.
It is.
DC did a good job capturing this, and if they could only get their live-action films to reach that point. We had moments, we've had glimpses of moments of it. Actually, I guess I was rewatching part of Wonder Woman the other day, so I did see some of that, and because it was on cable or whatever, and and there's moments in it that they're trying to capture that this film we're talking about today has a lot of that in it, a lot of great just emotional moments in the Superman films, and we like when Diana comes out onto No Man's Land in World War I. That's one of those moments. But DC needs more of that. Like they capture in this animated film, they need in their live action films, and we'll see what Aquaman brings us in a couple of weeks.
I am very optimistic about Aquaman, and so is my wife, for different reasons. She just likes Jason Momoa, which I guess is fine. I guess it's better than liking. The dude that played Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Hey.
Yeah. At least I can see why.
Jason Momoa is just a tough one to live up to. Is that the problem you're having, Matt?
Yeah.
Are you feeling a little insecure?
Yeah, I can't grow hair like that.
Or get the chest like him.
Yeah, and the chest and the tats.
So insecure. You looked very uncomfortable even telling the story.
I'm very, very uncomfortable. It's like
Did you watch anything this week or download anything?
I downloaded. Someone convinced me to download.
Not cat videos.
No, not cat videos. Clash of Clans. Have you ever
That's
seen
the little
those ads?
mobile game? Yeah,
Yeah.
all the freaking time. It was always like a hot chick in the middle of the war, and
Oh, yeah, it
download
was
this
Kate Upton.
video game. It was that Kate Upton,
Yeah.
Miss Verlander or something.
Oh yeah, Miss Verlander. And I downloaded it. It's actually pretty fun. I don't know if I'll be like my friend and play it for like 2 years, but it's all right. You know, I like it. I've enjoyed it so far, but it's probably going to be one of those fad things. But other than that, I'm pretty boring. You know, just downloaded that.
I think post Thanksgiving, it was just kind of like a go through the motion kind of week. And it's like you turn on the TV and you think like, I'm going to watch a movie, and then you don't watch a movie.
And I kept falling asleep.
Yeah.
I was trying to watch the other Supermans, and you know, like because I like to just watch the entire series.
All right.
I probably would have passed on 4. Maybe I would have watched it.
Awful. It's absolutely awful.
It is.
It's
the worst.
3 is watchable. We'll talk about all these.
We'll talk about 3.
2 episodes and everything. And but you know, but that being said, let's download this a little bit short this week. But let's get into Superman. Superman the movie, 1978. 40 years since this film came out, and this movie to me, rewatching it this week and researching the film, it almost doesn't get enough credit. It did for a while, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. When the superhero resurgence started happening. You know, when we got Batman in '89, and we got the X-Men films and Spider-Man, and it was getting credit. But now, I really feel like this movie's starting to lose some credit because Marvel has taken over so much with 20 films in 10 years in their universe that people were forgetting how great this movie is.
It really is. As far as like acting, just acting. I mean, you'd be surprised what people, you know, can do, you know, to make up for lack of special effects.
Yeah.
You know, they focus on more important things like dialogue and conveying your emotions, which Christopher Reeve was very well at, well good at, and you know, we'll talk about that. And then, you know, just good casting. Marlon Brando, as much of a dick as he was during the whole thing, you know, he's great. You know, of course, Gene Hackman, and though he you know, refused to shave his head.
Yeah, he was a dick in a different way than Brando was.
In a different way, yeah. A good dick. Yeah. You know, he had bad old dick. And
he appreciated being in the film. He just had his actor qualms that he wouldn't do.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, cool stories with Brando. I mean, he wanted the cameras rolling during rehearsal on the first take that they took, beginning of the film. They used it. It's like he was a guy that it had to be the first time.
Right.
And so he just had these little, like you said, little quirks.
He refused to memorize lines. He usually had pieces of paper taped to his hand and things like that, or to the baby's diaper.
Yeah, the baby's diaper. I saw that.
He refused. He's like, I'm just not doing it.
He's like, I will read from this baby's diaper, or it won't happen.
It's still, based on inflation, because he made $15 million off this film. His salary was only $3 million, but then profits. By inflation, it's still the most any actor's ever been paid for 10 minutes of screen time, even to this day.
Yeah, because he later sued because they only paid him out $3.7 million, and then they made all this money, and then they didn't use like hardly any of the footage in Superman 2, and so he sued along with another actor. I forget which actor. Also sued, maybe the actor that played the Daily Planet's editor, but
Jackie Cooper,
maybe. Sorry, my cough. I had to suppress my cough, and I sounded.
Well, you know, and that's the reason we're doing these movies back to back, because one, they go so well together, and a lot of people don't remember that this was a big production for Warner Brothers. It was a $50 million budget, which is a ton of money.
A lot of money.
76, 77, whatever year they filmed it, and they wanted 2 movies back to back. They fully intended to film. The script was something like ridiculous 200 pages, so it was a lot of script. So they were going to film it back to back, because the average 2-hour movie is 90 to 120 pages. So you have this huge script. They were going to they hired Richard Donner, who was an amazing director, and they wanted him to come in and film this entire script, and they were going to just find somewhere in the film to just split it in half, and they were going to release those 2 movies. Was their original plan. And next week when we talk Superman 2, we'll get more into why the split didn't quite work the way they wanted it to, and what happened with Richard Donner and the argument with the Socklins and the producers of these films.
Yeah.
But today we're focused on Superman 1. And, so it was a huge production. They had all this money for special effects and for Marlon Brando, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
They went and hired Gene Hackman, who was a very well-known actor at the time. He had done The French Connection and some other big films.
It was almost Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, it was almost Dustin Hoffman was hired. Margot Kidder was relatively known, she did some soaps and stuff, I think, like that. So not super well known.
She may have done Playboy at the time, which she is very hairy.
And they, there were several different actors that were screen tested for the role of Superman.
Yes.
Of course, Robert Redford, who was screen acted for almost everything back then. But they ultimately went with the unknown, and Richard Donner fought for that because he said, honestly, when Christopher Reeve came in the screen test, he was the best. And the studio kept telling Donner, no. So they're fighting at the very beginning of this. No, we don't want Christopher Reeve. But he stuck his ground, and he cast Christopher Reeve in the role.
Yeah, and the knock on Reeve wasn't so much his acting, but they thought he was too skinny.
Yeah. But he fought hard. He worked hard and bulked up, and once they put him in the suit, they liked the way he looked.
In fact, Darth Vader trained him to get stronger. So what better way to get stronger than using the dark side of the Force?
And through his screen testing, they were amazed how he could come in there in a suit and glasses and be nerdy and look like Clark Kent and look like he kind of shrunk down. And then they said when he walked in the Superman suit, he suddenly stood up tall and noble and convincing, and they were just like, "This is our guy."
Yeah, in fact, Roger Moore said that there was I don't know where he was to test out this suit, but he walked through this hallway on the suit in some country club or whatever. I forget where they were testing this effect out, or just this.
It was one of the studio lots, from remember right? Because Moore was there filming Bond or something.
Yeah, and he said that Reeve was just walking through this hallway, not paying attention to all these women who were just gawking at him in this suit, and he did the same thing as Clark Kent, like minutes later, and no one paid him attention.
Right.
And so it's like he was perfect for the role.
And then, and of course, the rest I say is history in some ways, because you look back on this now, and for us that grew up with Christopher Reeve, he's always going to be my Superman, and I think he's fantastic in this movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he is perfect for the role. And as much as I like what Henry Cavill's done with the character, Henry Cavill, I think is how you say it. I always want to say Cavill. But I really, I always go back and I rewatch Superman, and I completely rewind and say, nope, he's absolutely the best. And it's, I can never imagine anyone else in this role other than Christopher Reeve doing this now that, years later.
I mean, yeah.
They had cast someone like Robert Redford or... who was the other? There was
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yeah. Almost anybody was big in the 70s was.
And James Caan.
Yeah. They really came close to casting James Caan.
Yeah.
And I don't even see James Caan as Superman at all.
Heck no.
He's short. I just don't feel like he had the physique for it,
They almost casted Tony Danza in Superman 3, right?
Yeah. Because Reeve didn't want to come back, yeah.
Yeah. But then, Lester was... he was like, no way. Like, flipped out about Tony Danza being cast. So he begged Christopher Reeve to come back.
Money helped. Because Reeve didn't make a lot of money in the first two Superman films. But by the time they got to 3, they paid him quite a sum to come back.
Oh, yeah, he was the top billed actor.
Yeah. And so, they got this cast together that's really well... Jackie Cooper is Perry White, of course. Ned Beatty's in this film as Otis, who's kind of there just for comic relief in a way. But you gotta love some Ned Beatty, and and so the film is, of course, everyone knows the story of Superman, and it takes a bold opening where it opens up in black and white, where a young boy's reading Action Comics #1. So the story opens up with the amazing the credits of this film cost almost as much as like several other films in that year, 1978.
Can we talk about the pressure that he was under, that Donner was under? I mean, here's like the oldest like the dawn of a superhero, just Action Comics #1, and created an international superhero that everyone knew. And so I think it was very smart that they didn't try and, really make an adaptation from the comics so much. They did take parts from the comics, but I mean, to have all these eyes on you, I mean, the whole world was going to watch this movie, really, and you knew it. Everyone knew Superman, and that's why I feel like it was important to have the child read the comic from the beginning of the film, because it really lets you know where everyone first saw this at that time.
Well, yeah, because there had never been anything like this before. Science fiction was starting to take off in Hollywood through Star Wars and other films, but the superhero genre was known as being silly. It was Batman, Adam West. It was Super Friends and cartoons. It wasn't known for being big screen blockbuster that was taken seriously. And the original script for the film had a lot more comedy in it, and Richard Donner absolutely hated it.
Yeah,
he did leave the Otis character in there because Hackman kind of liked the idea. Gene Hackman kind of really liked the idea of having someone to play off of and making Lex Luthor look a little bit smarter. But Donner completely was against the film ever being a comedy, because Warner Brothers really wanted that first, and that also added to the fighting with the Socklins and the producers of the film.
Yeah, speaking about comedy, it's like he wanted Gene Hackman also had a mustache.
Yeah.
And so Donner had called him over the phone and asked him to at least cut off his mustache. And when Hackman said no, he's like, "Look, I'll cut off mine." And so whenever they met, he had his mustache on. He had Hackman cut his off, and then he revealed that his was just a stick-on mustache. It's pretty friggin' hilarious.
Yeah, and so for this film to come together in such a way that it did, with a huge budget and huge expectations, and the world watching, like you said, for a film of this caliber, it almost felt like maybe it was doomed to fail, but it worked so many ways in so many levels, and from beginning to end, this is a solid film. I think if I had any beefs with this film, it's the ending of the movie, and that ending was originally supposed to be in Superman 2, but when they ended up splitting the film and the whole thing with Richard Donner getting fired and then bringing in Lester to finish Superman 2, they had to rework the editing for Superman 1, so they ended up putting the going back in time thing in Superman 1. And that's probably my only beef with the film, because if Superman could turn back time like that and save Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen and everybody, then what's the point in ever having a villain, because he could just do it every time. And that's the one problem with Superman 2, which I like Superman 2 a lot. We're going to talk about it next week. Is that Jor-El warns Superman, like, if you interfere with the humans, there are repercussions, but then there never really is any repercussions.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. They never really come back to that story thread. So it's like, that's probably my one beef of the movie is the last 3 minutes, him turning back time. It just seems kind of silly. Well, but it makes for a really cool fucking sequence, too.
And some of the scenes are off. Like, whenever you see Superman trying to save the village from the water, the dam that the water just let go of, that scene, they changed their claymation, cinematographer, whatever, and he went on to do Bond, so he wasn't able to finish the film. So you can tell the lighting's a little different than it was before. The animation's a little off, and that kind of adds to that. It's just a little off, a little bit, but it's not. He's Superman. So some people complain about turning back time. He's Superman, man. Right. What do you think? He can do it.
But overall, the rest of the film, I love every second. I think that I think Reeve is fantastic in the movie. He even had a lot of acrobatic abilities in his own self and the things he did in real life.
Yeah, it was a glider.
He could be a glider. So he made the flying scenes really believable, and the effects to me actually if you remember to yourself this was made in the late 70s, that I think it holds up really well. I think it looks really good. I think the matte paintings behind Christopher Reeve and everything still look really good. And they've cleaned up the film over the years through digital processing and things like that. I don't think it needs any kind of special edition type treatment. I think it looks really good for the movie.
And they have
even today's age.
They had Reeve on a wire, suspended over a friggin' cliff.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, it took a lot of dedication and cojones the size of the big cojones to really just do that. And I think a lot of people would crap their pants if they had to do that kind of stunt work. And now they don't even let people do that kind of stunt unless you're Tom Cruise and you just demand it in your contract.
Right. And they sold this movie when the first teaser trailer hit as "You Will Believe a Man Can Fly," and how brilliant is that? Because it works. You watch this and you believe that Christopher Reeve is Superman. And you buy into the whole idea of this superhero. And like you said, being a very international superhero known across the world. And you go on this journey with him. And I think you do latch on to Superman and his quest to be the good guy, to save the world.
I know you said the last 3 minutes were probably your pet peeve of the film. I think it's the scene where, with the Peter Pan scene where, Superman takes Wendy, or Peter Pan takes Wendy, Lois, Superman takes Lois from the balcony, and they go on this flight. And
it's a little cheesy.
It's a little cheesy. I get why. It's definitely a product of its time. But you have Lois Lane. At first, she was going to sing this, "Can you hear what I'm thinking?" But then Donner was like, no, this is bad. And so then they made it a dub. But it's still kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like a little girl is reading like a wish list or something about what she wants in a man when she's older. But it's kind of weird. But hey, it's 78, so
right.
It is what it is. That's probably my biggest pet peeve, but it's not even that big of a pet peeve. It's just cheesiness. That's like saying 80s action film one-liners are your pet peeve. It's a product from the United States.
No, exactly. And that's the same thing with the ending, with the turning back time. It's a small pet peeve. I still like the movie, and for what it is, and I always go back to watching Reeve in this, and he's so good as Clark Kent. He's bumbling. He's a fool.
Yeah.
He's nerdy. But then he turns to Superman, and as Superman, he's even kind of got like this slight sense of humor to him. He kind of tells like dad jokes.
Yeah.
As Superman, things like that. It's really kind of funny. And one thing I do like about Margot Kidder though is they play off each other so well. She's really good. And you texted me earlier about ranking the Lois Lanes, and I think on Superman 2, we're going to do a lot of top 5 lists in the Superman 2 episode, kind of some things, how we feel about the Superman movies. And but she's excellent. She really is good. She kind of she plays the damsel in distress well, but she's also tough.
Yeah.
She doesn't take a lot of shit either.
Yeah, she really had to find a mix between, sassy, independent woman and, someone who also had a heart.
Right.
For Clark, because whenever Clark first comes in, I mean, she tries to like sabotage him by shaking up that beer bottle. And man, talking about PC, it's like whose boss would drink a beer bottle in the middle of the day in his office? But and of course he's like, oh yeah, who else would want to, or who would want to make a complete stranger look like a buffoon on their first day?
Yeah.
And she's like, huh. And so she's like dogging him the entire time. And then she finds out that he's actually a good guy. And she's like, are there any more of you back home?
All right.
And he's like, well,
No.
Because there ain't. He was the only one. There's one spaceship, one very big.
Yeah. No, she's really good. And then of course, let's go back to Clark's story and Superman before we get into G. Hackman and the bad guys in this movie. Jeff East plays the young Clark Kent, and it's funny. I've watched this movie many times, and until we researched for this film, I didn't realize that Chris Reeve dubbed over East's voice.
I didn't realize
I just always
either,
assumed that. I always just assumed that East sounded awful lot like Reeve.
Yeah.
That Donner wasn't in continuity of the young Clark Kent, and then he dubbed over his voice, and those are some of the scenes that watching this that I noticed as the young Clark that make this film. It gives it its heart and its emotion. That when we do finally see the Fortress of Solitude and we meet the older Clark Kent, Christopher Reeve comes into the film, it's set up to realize where he comes from. That he's an alien that was sent to this planet, but he's also human too in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And the great Glenn Ford plays Jonathan Kent, and of course he suffers a heart attack, and Clark feels that even with all my powers I couldn't save him, and it always sort of reminds me of the glaring problem I have with Man of Steel. I really like Man of Steel, except for the Jonathan Kent scene. It's always going to irritate me because Superman will never have let his father die from a tornado. The whole idea of Jonathan Kent dying is a way that Superman felt helpless. That no matter how much power I have, that I can't do things like that. And that's one part where this movie gets it right.
Yeah.
And it gives an emotion and a heart to the film, so that when you do meet the elder Clark, you understand where his upbringing is coming from, and why he is such a good person, as you were just saying. And she asked if there are any more of him there.
Yeah, he really is a Boy Scout, and he's good for the sake of good. I can't tell a lie. It says I can't tell a lie, which is actually funny because the biggest lie of all is him dressing as Clark Kent,
Right.
and not being Superman, which is funny because Superman will always be Superman.
Right.
His disguise is Clark Kent.
Right. That's what makes him so different than a lot of superheroes. Yeah.
Yeah. Every other superhero, their secret identity is the opposite.
Their superhero.
They're superhero.
Yeah.
And he's different, you know, and for a character that is always passed off as, invulnerable, and we want these vulnerable superheroes. We want superheroes with problems and issues, and they bleed. We want superheroes that are like us, and those are the ones that we connect with the most.
But he does have those problems.
He does have those problems. He's picked on. They
lost his what he believes is his father, just like other people have done. He struggles to fit in. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He struggles. Is he doing the right thing? Is he doing what he was sent to this planet to do by Jor-El and his parents? What is this his purpose? He questions that. Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, you have two different fathers that say something different. His biological father, Jor-El, says, "Don't interact with humans. You're superior. Don't interact with them. Don't mess with them." And his father of Earth, Jonathan, says, you're brought here for a reason. He's like, I thought that you should, just keep these to yourself. You'd never be able to, really show everybody. He's like, but one day you're going to show everybody, and you're going to make a difference. And he does.
Yeah, and what a difference he makes. A remarkable job in this film, and in his journey carries on, and he realizes he reveals himself to the world when he saves Lois, and I got you, who's got me, which is just a great scene as he saves her from a helicopter.
Yeah.
Then it goes into a montage scene where we see Superman do a lot of great things across the planet. And, of course, it leads all into him meeting Lex Luthor. So let's talk about Gene Hackman, who is Hackman is one of those actors that I think back on, and I can't think of anything he's ever done that's bad.
No.
As far as him. He might have been in a bad movie, but Hackman always puts it on screen. He never really leaves any. I don't think he's an actor that ever shows up and just mails it in.
Even in Superman 4, I mean, he was a good actor.
He oozes confidence in this film. Like, he plays the smart guy really well. Like, he really believes everything he says, every line he delivers. He's full of shit, but yet he
really
believes what he's saying. He believes in this bizarre real estate scheme he has to make California disappear, and that might be another small beat for the movie.
Angeles.
Is Luthor's scheme is a little bit, and I wonder sometimes if that was a budget restraint. We had to come up with something simpler, than some big, big kind of evil plan.
I feel like this would be the plot of like a used car salesman that wanted to take over the world.
Right.
Like, we're gonna, we're gonna buy all this land, and then it's gonna be worth more, and then we're gonna sell it. Be like, no, Luthor isn't interested in money. He's interested in taking down Superman. But I guess, they had to, rise tensions between them somehow. So, what better, way to mix that in than, the San Andreas Fault.
Right.
And, everyone's fear of, on that West Coast.
That was a big fear back then.
Yeah, California just slipping into the ocean and, taking a nice long bath for just ever.
Knock the mic down there.
Oops, you're getting angry. You're like trying to smack that thing around. Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, just, not something I would pick, but well executed. Gene Hackman really executes that direction, and you really believe his authenticity of Lex Luthor, even though he didn't, wear a bald cap even, but they make it look like, he's got hair pieces everywhere.
Right.
And that
they use stylists to redo his hair every time he's on the screen.
Yeah.
To make it look like he was wearing hair pieces, and I guess he had hair pieces in his underground lair there. And he wears a bald cap at the end of the movie there because he refused to shave his head.
Yeah.
Whenever Superman arrests him and Otis, it takes him to jail. And I've heard people have complained about Ned Beatty's character, say it's too silly, too goofy. But honestly, he doesn't really bother me. He bothers me a lot less than goofy characters like Jar Jar Binks. I actually like Otis. I think he plays for humor and it works. And Ned Beatty's so good at that kind of humor, and I actually like his character in the movie.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I mean, he sets up where where the
Miss
layer
Teschmacher
is.
a little more annoying.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems pointless, it's just someone for Luthor to yell at and boss around. There's like no reason for her to really be in the movie until she helps save Superman. That's her one moment in the movie.
Yep.
So she takes the kryptonite off him. But otherwise, she's really a pointless character.
Pretty much. And Luthor has never really had a love interest, really. He's had a female assistants, I guess, but you've never really seen a love interest, with Lex Luthor. So, kind of pointless.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, but I guess she works. I guess. She's, she makes Margot Kidder look way prettier than I think Margot Kidder is.
Yeah.
But, other than that, I guess she's, maybe we just say she's there to make Margot look better by comparison.
Maybe so. But they all work in their roles in the cast. And, of course, at the very beginning of the film, we're introduced to the three criminals of Krypton, which are played by Terrence Stamp, and then I don't know the other two actors. We'll talk about them next week, Superman 2.
Yeah.
And it's a plot thread at the beginning of the movie where they send these three criminals to the Phantom Zone that is set up for the sequel Superman 2. And that was a bold move, too, because what if Superman wasn't successful?
Yeah.
You set up this plot thread for Superman 2. And when they released this movie in 1978, at the end of the film, the credits, it did say Superman will return in Superman 2. It's not on any current editions of the DVDs or anything like that because they took it off. There's no point for it to be there. Just like with Back to the Future where they took off the to be continued, which really pisses me off.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like, oh, that's cool when you watch that. But anyway, that's a minor thing. And so that was a bold move, too, to introduce plot threads that are going to be introduced in Superman 2 that may have never come around if we did not get the sequel. But I guess at that point, they had already spent all this money to make the two films, even though they had fired Richard Donner shortly after he finished Superman 1.
Yeah.
I guess they knew Superman 2 was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, and I guess we won't talk too much about it. But it's very sad how that happened.
Yeah. No, we're definitely, in the Superman 2 episode, we're definitely going to get more into the Donner versus Soklin's fight and how Superman 2 even came to be in the two different versions.
Yeah.
And this film has extended versions, so let's talk. I watched the regular extended cut for what we watched today, which is the standard now. The theatrical cut's about 132 minutes. No, it's a little longer. It's about 142 minutes.
Yeah.
About 2 hours and 20. The extended cut's about an hour, 2 hours and 45 minutes or so. And that seems to be the standard cut most people watch nowadays. Then there's just last year, or earlier this year it was last year, they came out with they finally found a copy of the ABC extended television cut, which they thought had been lost, and they finally found a copy of it. It's a little over 3 hours.
The one that they were going to release on TV for everyone to watch? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually released, and I actually have it, and it's a little over 3 hours long.
Wow.
It doesn't really add much to the film. There's some scenes with Luthor, some other extended scenes. There's really nothing major to it. I do prefer the extended cut because I like the scenes on Krypton that are added where they speak to the executioner who's going to go kill Jor-El before the plan destroys.
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that in the background. We get to see the extended version of where Otis is walking the lair. That's all extended. Those are some of the differences in this film. But that was a very common thing back in the 70s. We still get director's cuts today. But back then, they did do things like that, where especially with science fiction and films, they would cut things for pacing, cut things for timing, and we'd get these extended versions later, or they would purposely save it for the television airing. Now it's a little different because it's all goes to broadcast and cable television.
I want to say that I read that this film was originally meant to go straight to DVD, which is weird. It's maybe they meant straight to DVD instead of straight to TV.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they meant. But, even so, this film I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going with that.
Dead air.
That's the bad thing about being sick. You just sometimes lose your train of thought. I did it for like a week. Okay. I'm sick. I do apologize for that.
But no, overall this film though,
the international cut.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about.
Well, the international cut is kind of the
one with the guard. I mean, it has the guard, and that's pretty much just it.
Right.
And that's it. I mean, I think now the international cut is actually part of the extended cut and director's cut. It's in all of them, I want to say, because that's the first thing they do. Instead of Zod and his henchmen coming in and grabbing the crystal, they break the guard's neck, seemingly, or choke him out, something like that, kill him, basically, and then they grab the crystal, and then they're caught. Yeah. So, something small.
Yeah. But there are different cuts of film. But most people, I think now, if you buy the film, most of the time you get the extended cut on DVD and Blu-ray, and that seems to be the common version. It's not quite as confusing as Superman 2 is next week.
No, yeah.
The different cuts of Superman 2 are even more confusing. But we'll talk about those next week. But overall, this film, I really like a lot. And we haven't even talked about the John Williams score yet. I texted you and tell you, man, I think this score might be better than Star Wars. And it's hard to argue any John Williams score because you go Jaws, you have Star Wars, you have Raiders of the Lost Ark. He did Harry Potter, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. John Williams is our maestro. He's our great composer, I think, of our generation. I think there is no one better doing film.
There's not.
There's some guys that are very good, Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, guys that are very good, but there's no one better than John Williams.
No.
And the use of his score in this movie, the difference in this score to me and the Star Wars is really good, and it's iconic, don't get me wrong, because everyone knows how much I love Star Wars. But Star Wars is multiple themes. You have Luke's theme, you have Vader's theme, you have Han's theme, you have Leia's theme. Where this is centralized around Superman and his theme, and the themes that, it's used so perfectly in the right moments where the horns will start playing and and John Williams knows when to use the score in this movie, and he knows not when to use it and let scenes play out, and it's almost scored perfectly. And I think that's the difference in it in Star Wars is this has a centralized theme around Superman.
I think that's fair.
And it works so well.
And I think I side a little bit more with you now because I think I was looking at it as theme versus theme, not like placement and build up and the emotion that it's supposed to capture. Like, I mean, the flight scene, even though I was like, it's kind of cheesy. The music is actually really good, and I think if you just played the soundtrack and just listened to the soundtrack, you'd know what was going on in the film.
The opening credits alone get you pumped up when the music's playing and all the names are swooping across the screen. It's awesome.
Now it slams, right?
Yeah.
The new version, it just slams.
This is one of my favorite opening sequences of all time. And one thing I really liked about Bryan Singer's Superman Returns is that he did use a John Williams score.
Yeah.
That might be my one thing I really liked about it. I love the opening sequence with just like the original Superman film. I remember sitting in theaters in 2006 with Superman Returns and thinking, this is cool.
They also reused some of the filming of Marlon Brando
in
Superman Returns.
Yeah. Some of his voiceovers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and that's why I really like this theme a lot from John Williams. And I'm always going to love Star Wars because Star Wars is my favorite movie of all time. But I really, man, I could argue that this might be John Williams' best work as far as a centralized character theme, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I love it. And like you're right, you can actually put this on and listen to it and think about moments in the movie, that catch your attention. But overall though, it's phenomenal. This movie is 40 years old now. It's hard to believe because I think for being a 40-year-old movie, it holds up really well, and I think it's got a lasting legacy. And that legacy is that I think this is a lot of ways responsible for the superhero films we have today.
Yeah.
And even though they're different films, but I think without Superman the movie, do we ever get Batman 1989?
Without Richard Donner, do we have anyone that inspires Christopher Nolan?
Right.
Do we have anyone that inspires any of these other actors that look up to Donner? Because he showed everyone how to make a blockbuster.
Right.
How to take an international superhero and character that everyone loves and make it successful. And, he wrote that plan. He made it happen, and it was so good. He was offered every single superhero movie. I was offered to direct everything,
right?
And he turned it all down. But it's like it's his court. That was his court. They had to come to him, and he said no, shut them all down. But that just shows how great of a director he was and how good his work was, and it speaks for itself.
Yeah, and the character of Superman has been around. He celebrated his 80th birthday this year, which is appropriate. That's 80 years and 40 years of the movie. And he's a character that is going to stand the test of time. We just lost Stan Lee, of course, who created all these fantastic characters that are going to be here long after we left. And Superman is one of those characters, too, that Joel Shuster and Jerry Siegel created. And these were just two Jewish kids that wanted to create a hero that they could relate to, that because they always felt like they were outcasts being Jewish, and they created this character to be an outcast that they could relate to. And they created a character that, like he says, iconic across the world. Our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, everyone knows who Superman is, from here to India to Russia. And no matter where you are in the world, someone knows who Superman is. And there might only be three, I can only think of maybe 4 characters across the world that are known like that. And that might be Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and I would argue maybe the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, the Hulk.
You know, let's face it, Captain America and Iron Man aren't as popular across the world as maybe the Hulk is.
No.
People know who the Hulk is.
Oh, yeah.
And that may be a strange thing to say. There might be people over there listening going, what? You don't realize the Hulk the Hulk television show in the 70s played across international waters. People knew who that character was. And that may be a strange thing to say. But Superman is definitely one of those characters that is always going to be here long after we have left this world. And it's an amazing creation. They survived 80 years, and God willing, we're still here in 20 years. We get to see his 100th anniversary.
Yeah. I mean, it's in every single comic after this movie came out wanted to depict Christopher Reeve's image as Superman. And he really gave us a new model to draw Superman off of, and we still kind of use that design up until this day. Everyone's got that little twirl the front of their head where they play the character. Maybe not Cavill. Right. I don't know about Cavill.
He's got a little bit more. He's got the Kal-El going. Yeah. But I want to take the moment to talk about some of what I think are some of Superman's greatest moments in his 80-year legacy. And did you make a list, or you have some off the top of your head?
I have some off.
Kind of a short list.
Yeah.
In no particular order. Because, we are and next week we're going to talk about our favorite Supermans, our favorite Superman movies, and rank them and all that. But today we're going to talk a little bit about his legacy. And if I can read my own freaking handwriting, I may have to turn a light here because I'm blind as shit. And, oh, shoot. Oh, I have the Kingdom Come comic on here. It was one of his greatest moments from a few years ago where the world is in trouble again and Superman's been retired for many years. And the Elder Justice League come back together, and they really need Superman's help. And it's a phenomenal comic book storyline. And I keep waiting every year that DC is going to announce that they're going to animate this thing into a freaking DC animated film.
That would be awesome.
Because Kingdom Come is really fucking badass. It's phenomenal artwork by Alex Ross and storytelling. I can't remember the writer off the top of my head. I have the graphic novel somewhere around here. But the Kingdom Come to me is one of his great moments in the history of the character. And you want me to just do mine, then you can say.
Well, I'll do mine. Whenever I was growing up, the coolest comics to own was the white covered Superman comic and the black one, the Death, and then the Resurrection. Right. And those were like, you bought it and you just didn't read it. You knew what happened in there. Right. You just didn't read it. And one day, I opened mine up because I never read it, right? And it was pretty cool. I
actually have that on my list. I didn't, like I said, in order, but I do have the Death of Superman, so we can talk about that. That was a phenomenal thing. I was in high school at the time, and it was a big, big fucking deal. It made the news. It made news everywhere.
Wizard.
If the internet had been out, it had been all over the internet. That they were killing Superman, and we knew it for months to come because they had the storyline that was playing out in the comic books called Doomsday and the Death of Superman. He was coming. They were going to kill Superman. A little different from the animated film that's out now. Yeah. It was more Justice League International was more involved in it. But it was a well-written storyline, well-received for the most part. And they did the unthinkable. They killed Superman. And like you said, you had to go get the Black Bat comic with the bleeding Superman logo on it. And then they resurrected him with the Reign of Superman storyline and Funeral for a Friend.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. And it still ranks as one of the great Superman moments in the history of the character, obviously, because we just this year had an animated film coming out, so they're still telling that story. Oh, yeah. And that's how much it stood the test of time.
It's good whenever
we got a version of it in the Batman vs Superman movie.
Yeah, you can tell the story over and over and over again. It just never gets old.
Yeah,
you just enjoy it every time it's told.
Mm-hmm. I have, for me, also coming out of high school, Superman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series gets a lot of credit for being fucking phenomenal, because it is.
Yeah.
But Superman the Animated Series is really good, too. It told some great Superman stories. It took risk with the character. We got to see bad guys that we might not gotten to see on the movies because they weren't limited by special effects budgets. And I think sometimes Superman the Animated Series doesn't get enough credit because it's always played in the shadow of Batman the Animated Series. But for me, I always watched the Superman films growing up. I liked Superman 2, and Superman 3, even with Richard Pryor. But I didn't love Superman a lot. And I think Superman the Animated Series made me a bigger fan of Superman watching that animated series in the 90s.
In the one in the 90s, was that... Well, did they have a crossover one time whenever him and Batman teamed up?
Yeah, the world's finest episodes.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of remember it because in the 90s, all I really watched was Batman animated series and then the Spider-Man one, which I actually own a couple seasons of that one. And, of course, X-Men. We watched X-Men, too.
Because they had the Batman Superman hour too, where Batman would come on the Superman.
That's right.
No, it was really good. I have that as one of his great moments for me, because I think it introduced Superman to a whole new generation of people that weren't familiar with him in the 90s.
Man, it's I would say a good, a different Superman moment for a different reason is Christopher Reeve. Turning down 2 parts that ultimately went to Arnold Schwarzenegger. One in a movie that we did earlier this year in The Running Man, and he also turned down the role of Dennis Quaid in Total Recall. He turned down both, and I didn't realize that. So he turned down Total Recall in 1990, and he stayed Superman after the advice of his colleagues that he shouldn't even take the role of a superhero, that he'd be, seemingly typecast, or that, just not taken seriously. Right. And, he really was. And I think he became an 80s and early 90s icon. And I think we really fell for him whenever, he fell off that horse and, the stem cells didn't really help, and unfortunately he didn't make it to be here today for the 80 year and 40 year anniversary we're talking about today.
Well, it's funny because I have on my list is the movie. As Superman the movie, making it to theaters is one of the great moments, because here we are 40 years later talking about it still, and it's still a phenomenal movie. And with that movie, it helped bring Superman to the world in live action. And I think that's why I have it on my list. And then I have one more on my list, and it's Action Comics #1.
Oh,
the book that introduced him to everyone.
The book.
If without Action Comics #1, we don't have Superman, and it's that simple. That comic gave us Superman to the world.
Wasn't he named like Devilman or something like that?
That was Batman. They had different names.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, Superman was always Superman.
I'll tell you what, the coolest class I ever took at U of H was this graphic literature class that I signed up for. And I show up, and, we're talking about Action Comics on the first day of school. And I'm like, what did I sign up for? And they're talking about The Killing Joke and Watchmen and all these different graphic novels that are just, awesome and great to read. And I'm like, this is my curriculum? This is friggin' awesome. I signed up for History of Comic Books, and I'm getting college credit for it. Sweet.
Can't beat that.
No, man, no. It was pretty cool, and it taught me how to analyze graphic novels and what was in books and stuff. Like a little tangent, but one of the coolest things I ever saw there, and I apply it to everything now, is this. He showed us these slides. This kid, he's holding a bear. There's a bear, and the kid's walking by it like a toy bear, like a teddy bear. And he's older now, and he's just walking past the bear in the hallway, and people are like, they're like, oh, what does the bear mean? That's the question. And so people are like, oh, the bear represents his childhood and his innocence and a part of his life, and there's all these different theories, and this one person says, what the F do you mean? It's just an effing bear. It's just there. It's just a bear. And so I'm like, sometimes I use that as a reason not to look into things or take things for more than what they are. I'm like, sometimes they just exist, and that's it. And there's no deep meaning to it. It's just there. Like analyzing, we can analyze things that happen in movies every day.
The things that Frank say sometimes.
The things that Frank say, they just exist. They're absolutes. Whatever the Sith deal in.
Yeah.
But
it's like people that complain about the Transformers movies. I'm like, do you realize you're watching a movie about giant robots?
Yes.
It is what it is.
Come on, man. It's giant robots, man.
You ruined my childhood.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense. But Superman the movie has a lasting legacy, as we always said, and so does the character of 80 years. And we're not done, because next week we've got more Superman to talk about. We're going to talk Superman 2. We're going to preview that in just a little bit, though. We're going to talk. But any final thoughts on Superman the movie before we get into today's news briefs?
It's really good. Still holds up today.
Yeah.
And, and
Christopher Reeve, and we were talking about, we started the show earlier talking about how well acted it is, and we were texting back and forth. The scene where Lois seemingly dies, I mean, Christopher Reeve puts it all on the table right there. You feel the emotion in his face and his eyes, and here's this man that's from another world who's come here to protect us, and he hurts. And it shows you how good Christopher Reeve was.
Yeah.
And that he chose to play Superman and be typecast when he could have maybe done other things, but he appreciated the role and he loved it.
And I mean, there's even a part in the movie, I'm sorry, I didn't mention this earlier, whenever he wants to tell Lois who he is,
right,
and he shows the audience right there that he can even fool you.
Yeah.
That he was so well acted that he could fool the audience right in your face.
Yeah.
And be two different people at once, and you're like, wow, it's two different people.
No, he's excellent, and more to talk about him when we talk Superman 2. And my final thoughts are, though, yes, this is the movie that I think maybe growing up, this along with Batman in 1989 might be responsible for me liking comic books and comic book movies. I mean, of course, Star Wars is responsible for a lot of things, and Super Friends and Spider-Man: The Amazing Friends, the cartoons I watched. But those two movies, we rebooted the show with episode 81, and we talked Batman 1989, and now today here we're talking Superman as we get to the end of 2018. And those two movies are probably really responsible for my love of comic books, and I'm always going to love Superman the movie, and I think it's a really fantastic film overall. And so more Superman in just a few minutes here, but we got some news briefs to talk about. Man, the first big one, fucking Netflix, they canceled Daredevil, man.
I can't believe it, dude.
You know, Marvel dropped a bit of a bomb saying we look forward to more adventures of Daredevil, like they're teasing that it's going to be more, and they tweeted out the picture at the end of season 3 of Karen, Foggy, and Matt together. This show has been so good. It's been my favorite thing that Marvel's done.
Yeah.
On Netflix, and maybe right up there with my favorite thing, period, they've done since they created Marvel Studios. The show ends in season 3. We're a way that if it ends, it ends. But I just feel like they set it up perfectly for, and minor spoilers here, the way the Defenders ended, where we don't know if Elektra is dead, the way season 3 ended, where Bullseye is still alive, it's the Frank Miller storyline's right there in front of you. It's there. You have to film it now, right? Yeah, they went a different route of getting to it because we've already seen the hand and all that in season 2. But it's there. You have to do it now, right? You've got to. You've got to do one.
Have Elektra and Bullseye.
Yeah, you've got to have one more season with the famous Frank Miller storyline where Bullseye, Elektra, and Daredevil go head to head. The ninjas are involved, the hand, and all that. I know Stick's not in the story anymore, but you can work around that and tell some version of that story. And I hope it happens. I hope Disney, Marvel Studios has some plan. There's a reason they're canceling these to relaunch them somewhere else. I don't care if it's HBO, Showtime, wherever they have to put this out to make it work. You know, they said they're not going to put on Disney Plus. That's fine, but find a way. I don't care. I really don't care about the other shows, but give me one more season of Daredevil.
Yeah, because you can always use Daredevil, as a way for these other shows or these other characters to pop in.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it would be too far-fetched to think that Jessica Jones couldn't show up even for like a cameo in an episode.
Well, and the strange thing is they've canceled those 3 shows so far, and they had Jessica Jones season 3 is just wrapped. Punisher season 2 just wrapped. So they're coming in 2019. And it almost feels like they're coming, but for no reason. You almost feel like they're going to cancel shortly after they premiere.
Yeah.
Because it's all going that way with Disney opening their streaming service. But I hope it's not the end of Matt and crew, because it's been a phenomenal show.
Hopefully not.
Really well done. If you haven't watched season 3 yet, watch it. It is some really great comic book storytelling. Really, really fantastic. Next on the news, we're going to stick with Marvel for a minute. When are we getting the Infinity War 2 trailer, the new Captain Marvel trailer? Well, new Captain Marvel poster hit today.
Yes.
There's a lot of... we're recording on Sunday night. You guys will hear this show on Monday night. There's a lot of talk that the Captain Marvel trailer is dropping tomorrow morning and the Avengers trailer is dropping Wednesday or Thursday. That's going to be a Marvel week. So by the time you hear this, we might have a new Captain Marvel trailer.
Yep.
I'm almost to the point, does Disney even need to market Avengers 4? Really? Because we're all going to fucking go see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we probably are. I mean, it's
and how much are they really going to show?
Yeah.
They're not going to show anything. They're not going to reveal anything about how the time has changed or how they bring back Spider-Man or Black Panther or any of these characters. They're not going to tell us anything. They're going to keep it all a secret. We're going to get a trailer that's going to feature Iron Man, Thor, and Cap, the Avengers that survived Infinity War. We're not going to see anyone else in this trailer.
Someone leaked a script of the trailer, and they say it's, it's like a bunch of quotes, people saying like, we're beaten, whatever. And then, it shows Tony, flying into the desert with Nebula and walking out to meet Cap. And that, they just kind of, look at each other like, they just got defeated.
Yeah.
And, and then they ensue the plot like working together, but nothing specific.
Yeah.
I think we've seen enough pictures to where we kind of have an idea of what's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm fine with that storyline. I just hope it's not too easy and it's still a big challenge to take down Thanos.
So stay tuned, people. We may get the trailer this week.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about it on the next show. And if I can continue to read my free... Oh, Blade Runner. It's getting an anime series. It's going to be on... what's the Cartoon Network's animation thing at night?
Oh, Adult Swim.
Yeah, it's going to be on Adult Swim. Man, Blade Runner kind of fits that style. It's film noir. It's sci-fi noir. They did some anime shorts to tie into 2049. And from reading what I read from the producers, they seem to get the world of Blade Runner. This could be really cool. Anime's obviously been making a huge comeback in recent years and everything like that. And Blade Runner, I think, lends itself to that. And it's definitely something I think I would watch and check out.
Oh, it's one of the best movies in the 80s. And
don't die on us here, man.
I know. I'm slowly dying on this show. This will be my last show. I'm trying to make it. I'm going for a stellar performance and just pouting out at the end. But I mean, the visual effects of Blade Runner, even up until this day, are just awesome.
They tend to lend themselves to anime style.
Yeah, especially like just the way the billboards are and the buildings.
Yeah.
It looks like friggin' Tokyo, like futuristic Tokyo, so very much so.
All right. We'll stick with anime for a minute. Are you familiar with Cowboy Bebop?
Yes.
Netflix is going to do a live-action series. I don't know a lot about it, but, we our buddy Frank knows a lot. And this has a huge fan base. And from everything I've read, that if Netflix doesn't do this right, these fans are going to fucking riot. Yes. That seems to be the case.
That's like, I mean, it's just like doing a live-action, Dragon Ball Z. I mean, if you get it wrong, it's like you have just a huge fan base that's going to be ticked. And Cowboy Bebop's huge.
Well, and we actually have a request from a friend to do the Cowboy Bebop movie that came out in 2001.
Oh, yeah?
But it's $40 on Blu-ray, and I haven't found it for rent anywhere. So he's supposed to be digging through his box to see if he can find his copy and let us watch it.
Maybe so YouTube has a version that someone leaked.
Yeah, maybe cut apart in different parts. It's possible. Because apparently you can watch it and not having watched the show.
You can.
You can enjoy the movie. So we'll see about that. Last bit of news before we close out the show and preview next week's episode. Star Wars Galaxy Adventures just released to YouTube as Lucasfilm made their own YouTube Kids channel. And these are like different little stories that are told from the original trilogy using dialogue from the movies, little short animation films. And it looks kind of neat. I watched the one they released the other day with Luke. It's kind of cool, kind of anime style. We're sticking with the anime theme, and I'm always down for more Star Wars. I haven't watched all the Forces of Destiny because they kind of released them so fast. It was hard to keep up with them.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to check these out, because I'm always down for more Star Wars.
I'm so far behind. I will try my best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try my best to watch it. Yeah.
And Star Wars has been a little slow lately. Not a lot of news, but I'm expecting. I'll be shocked if we don't get the episode 9 title before the end of the year.
You gotta get something. Give us something, dude.
It popped up on my Facebook memories or somewhere the other day that I guess about 2 years ago we got the Last Jedi title. So it seems to be like a year before the movie comes out we get the title.
Yeah.
So I think it's coming soon. So that's the last bit of news I have. So before we get out here, we already kind of spoiled next week's movie is, but next week we are going to do Superman 2.
Superman 2. The adventure continues with the 3 villains from Krypton. Each one with the same powers as Superman. Each one dedicated to violence against mankind.
Think of it. 3 supervillains. Or 4 if you count him twice.
The adventure continues in Paris with Lois Lane.
I believe this is your floor.
And the romance continues. The adventure continues in Washington. The world is on the brink of destruction.
Superman, can you hear me?
And Metropolis is in ruins.
Superman, help us!
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Superman!
General, would you care to step outside?
Revenge.
Revenge!
Revenge!
Now we're cooking, huh?
The big one's just as strong as Superman.
If you've only seen the first part, you haven't seen the best part. The adventure continues in Superman 2.
Yes.
The sequel, of course, to the movie we just talked about today, because we felt like instead of doing a double feature, we felt like each movie was owed its own own episode, because there's so much to talk about these. And Superman 2 is a sequel that's really worthy and really well done.
Yes.
It has some different cuts to it too. The famous original cut with the plastic S chest being thrown off, and then it has a Richard in the Paris scene at the beginning where he saves the bomb in Paris, which completely disappears in Richard Donner cut.
Yeah.
And we're already confusing you before we ever watch it, or talk about. But we will talk about the 2 different cuts of Superman 2, and Superman 2 is one of my favorite sequels of all time, and I'm looking forward to talking more about. We're also going to rank the Superman films that have been out so far. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a little bit more about Superman in animation next week, and the animated films and things that have come out, and going back to the Max Fleischer's cartoons from the 1940s and things like that. And maybe rank the Lois Lanes.
Yes.
So we'll have some fun with that next week, talking Superman 2. Any quick thoughts on Superman 2 before we get out of here?
I've got to save it for Superman 2, because I'm going to just, I'm just going to blurt it out and spoil stuff.
So it should be fun. So today, 40 years of Superman. Next week, 38 years of Superman 2. Because it came out like 2 years later in 1980. But it should be a fun one to talk about. So we talked the sequel to the movie we talked today, next week on the Rebel Radio Podcast. And as always, go to rebelradiopodcast.com. Check us out. All our t-shirts are still on sale. I'm going to leave them on sale another week. Why not?
Why not?
Because you know why? Because we haven't fucking sold one. So someone go buy a shirt, man. Buy one on sale while it's on sale. And everything. And if you know what? If you buy a shirt, I will send you in a separate envelope. Oh, we got some stickers in. I'll send you a sticker if you buy a shirt. So that's not bad.
There you go.
You know,
a freebie.
And if you don't want to buy a shirt, just donate on our PayPal button on the website on the rebelradiopodcast.com, and I'll still send you a sticker if you donate on there. But as always, thank you for listening to the show, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and all that good stuff, Instagram. And that's all I got.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I felt like I was going to say something else, but I wasn't.
Is there a quote from this one that we can use? Let's think.
It's more part 2 when he says, Jor-El, kneel before Zod. It's always a famous quote.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's a great movie, but it's not maybe the most quotable movie.
Yeah, it's probably not quotable.
Yeah, that's okay. Everyone remembers the John Williams score.
It's true.
But I'm not going to try to sing the score. Your raspy voice.
I can do it as Peter Griffin.
But good stuff. So, but that's it. As always, thank you for listening, and remember, just go there.
And
I guess this is Mark.
No, this is Mark.
Oh, this is Matt.
This is Matt.
Okay.
I
forgot the outro.
The outro.
The outro.
Yes.
Just go there
and do it.
This is Ming Chen from AMC's Comic Book Man. I love Houston. I love podcasting. But what I really love is the Rebel Radio podcast.
This is Walker Simonson. You're listening to the Rebel Radio podcast.